Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Dominance. The Oxford Dictionary describes it as power and influence over others. And 1 week ago at Suzuka, this describes Andy Samborski's drive, not only picking up the win, however also picking up the Grand Chelem, an award first given to Juan Manuel Fangio in a Formula One World Championship race at the 1950 Monaco Grand Prix, for qualifying on pole, leading every lap, having the fastest lap in the race and securing the victory. However, this week, we visit the Autodrome Internazionale Enzo Dino Ferrari, or Imola as it's more commonly known. Tainted by the tragedies of 1994, it still remains as one of the most atmospheric and challenging circuits in not just Europe, but the whole of motor racing. Hello and welcome to Apex Racing TV for round 2 of the Formula Renault 3.5 Championship. I'm Tim Cox. Behind the scenes we have Sam Fitzpatrick in the production booth, but right now, as always, I'm joined by Seb Boscher-Williams. Seb, Imola, it's a fast, furious circuit with some really challenging sections. For me, it's always Aqua Mineral that I can never seem to get right. And as we were just talking before the show, a bit of a tricky win for some of the drivers out there that could catch them out.
It certainly could. Good evening, Tim. Good evening to everybody at home. Yeah, this wind is going to be a real challenge for the drivers today. It's currently sort of facing westerly, and if you're not up to date with your, what different corner is affected by different sort of winds in Imola, that's a sort of a crosswind into sort of turns 5 and 6, or the Variante Villeneuve, a really difficult section of the track. So yeah, the drivers are going to have their work cut out today. Not only are these cars super powerful, but yeah, there's going to have some wind at play as well. So certainly one to watch out for. What you said about Aqua Minerale is so true. It's so difficult, and especially in these Formula cars. No ABS, no traction control. It's all about how you manage your throttle and brake inputs, and it is so difficult. And I think it's where we're going to see today, Tim, drivers making mistakes, getting vulnerable as we head towards the Variante Alta. It's just going to be such a good race. And like 1 week ago at Suzuka, we have Eddie Samborski at the top of the timing stands. And as a surprise to, I think, nobody, to be honest.
No, continuing in the rich vein of form. He's carried on for the last few seasons, securing first position for the moment by nearly half a second, a whopping margin in qualifying. Baha, currently occupying second place and sharing the front row with him. He's riding on board with Josh Stewart. Not the best opening lap for him, a 1:35.8, looking to improve and down into the Ravatsas. He's looking to hook it up, all about the exit, because one little mistake of not quite getting your exit right off there really catches you out and massively depletes your top speed come the end of, well, some call it a straight, but it moves around left and right. And wow, what an improvement from the bottom of the timing sheets to the second row of the grid for the Stewart, the Aussie, picking up third place to join his fellow countryman Jason Sieg on that second row of the grid. And actually, to be fair, look at the time differences there between Baja, Stewart and Sieg. Under a tenth, separating the three of them, 700ths of a second to be precise. With Freckleton just promoted up into 11th for that set. Done and dusted. A smaller field today, 17 cars. That's due to the race moving across into 3 different splits here today. And here is your grid. Samborski on pole once again with Baja joining him on the front row of the grid. Stewart and Sieg there on the second row with all French row continuing a trend of fellow countrymen locking out the first 3 rows. It's the Frenchmen of Ranchon and Cornu. Then we've got Gallus and Lambert with Jamie Byrne and Crespo rounding out your top 10. Dylan Freckleton has Michael Keane joining in for company on the 6th row of the grid with James Byrne and Gerhard Roth on the 7th row. Then it's John Owens and Gwendolyn Old with Yuki Shirakawa right at the back of the grid, 17th place. Didn't get a time in. We spotted during practice, had a bit of an off, and he's going to have his work cut out there, Seb, if he wants to try and make some progress here today at Imola.
Oh, he certainly has, and it's not really the track that you'd want to not be able to qualify at. Overtaking is possible around here, but it's certainly not as easy as it was 1 week ago at Suzuka. So yeah, Yuki's got his work cut out, and I think I'll be hoping that there's a little bit of spiciness on the opening laps and sort of thread his way through. But of course, you're in the danger zone starting back there, so it's certainly not an ideal start to his race today.
Just waiting for the last few cars to take to the grid. Just waiting on one, which is Samborski. Here he is. Just see him populate onto the front row of the grid there. And here come the lights. Let's get ready to go racing in the Formula Renault 3.5 Championship for round 2 at Imola. And we are away. Not the best of starts from Stewart there off the start line, getting a little bit bogged out. Coming back again. He's going to hold on to that third place. A brilliant start, though, by Samborski. Clear at the front. And oh, that was Lambert, I think, off track there. Losing it on the entrance into Tamburello. But everyone else getting away cleanly. Taro Ranchon, he's had a good size. Already at one place, displacing Sieg. Into field and bumping across the curves. It's not going to give him the best of exits. Sieg trying to apply the bit of pressure there on the run into Tosa. And everyone, that midfield, tightly compacted in these early stages. Our top 3 really pulling away, some clear air between them, and then this the start of the train headed up by Ranchon. Oh, there's a spin. That was Jamie Byrne there, just losing it into Piratella. Oh, what a shocker for him and Lambert down to the back of the field. But I'll tell you what, Shirakawa, we said work it out. He's already at 6 places into 11th as our leaders head through Grassini and down towards the Ravatsas. But Seb, wow, what an opening lap, and we're not even quite done and dusted here.
We certainly aren't. No, great start. I mean, you pointed out that Shirakawa is up 6 places. He gained 5 of those before the braking zone of turn 1, so we must have had an absolutely mega start. Congratulations to Yuki Shirakawa, certainly sort of undoing some of the damage that he had after not being able to qualify. But you have to say, Samborski kind of survived the sort of the highest risk operation of his race win today. He was getting off the start, and that was really accomplished by Stewart just not getting the launch. I don't know if he didn't have his launch control engaged or just wasn't paying attention to the lights. Not sure, because yeah, Stewart not the start that he would have wanted, but really clean. You know, I think both Byrne and Lambert sort of only had their own incident. We see Gwendolyn Old, who was involved in an incident, at least according to our timing software. So they're making their way through the field as we head towards Tosa Corner for the second time this race. But surprisingly clean, looking really good. And yeah, look at that gap between Stewart and Rakon. It's absolutely massive for only being lap 2.
Let's head down into Equiminerale for the second time today. Ranchon still heading up this train that involves himself, Sieg, Cornu. Well, it pretty much carries all the way down to John Owens, down in 13th. A mammoth long stream of cars. I expect to see them slipstream each other down the start-finish straight. As Ranchon heads down into Rabatza, hard onto the brakes, and Seb, so crucial for this set of corners to make sure you get the perfect exit, especially out of Rabatza too, because it really, as I was saying earlier, hampers your top speed if you don't get that exit right.
It's so crucial, and it already starts in the braking zone of Rabatza 1. You've got to be as late on the brakes as you dare, but not too late, as we have a replay of the start. This is what happened to Shane Lambert. Fix your eyes to the car 11 as we head towards the braking zone of turn 1.
Bit of
contact there, and actually it was Lambert running into the back of somebody, and he comes off worse, which we don't tend to see. So yeah, Lambert sort of, you normally sort of blame, or at least apportion blame to the rear driver in sort of an incident like that, and yeah, Lambert came off worse, so no harm done. Hopefully the driver involved doesn't pick up any floor damage, as that can be really crucial and damaging to your long-term pace. Yeah, it's I can't quite remember my point, Tim. I'm sure it was going to be absolutely amazing, but Rankon at the moment really under pressure from Sieg, and if you are the drivers, 5th, 6th or 7th, you need to get past Ludwig at the moment if you want to have a chance in the top 3, because they're absolutely storming away at the moment.
Right, what's really playing into Ranchon's hands right now is the group behind him of Sieg, Cornu and Gallus starting to scrap away a little bit. The Frenchman is going to be looking with glee into his mirrors to see that going on. So we head down through the Ravazzas. We get ready for this long run down to turn 1. One of the longest runs down to turn 1 that we have this season. So for next week, when we head to Fuji, that absolute mammoth start-finish straight, we're going to get to experience that one. Brand new track to iRacing to see Freckleton there trying to make a bit of an advance. Can't quite get it done. Shirakawa up another place. Oh, something's happened to Sieg. He's run a bit wide. You can just see there, and he's lost 2 places. He's going to lose another one to Crespo. Oh, into the braking zone, into Fielner. Loses yet another one. Gallus says, thank you very much. Oh, a bit of that. And here comes Freckleton. Shirakawa getting through too. And Byrne trying to run it right around the outside. But offline, Sieg, and he's losing places left, right, and centre, Seb.
Yeah, it just goes to show how fast these drivers are and how willing they are to sort of pounce, but yeah, how crucial it is to be on that ever crucial racing line. And as soon as he got off it, he got dirt on his tyres, just lost that momentum, and that's it. That's the end of you. And let's see what happened to Jason Sieg. Heading down into turn number 1, locks up and has to take the gravel trap, and yeah, you're going to have dirt on your tyres, grass on your tyres. You've sort of heated up the tyres and cooled them down at the same time, which you'd think would make it sort of, they cancel each other out, but let me tell you, it makes it a whole lot worse. And yeah, we were talking, Tim, weren't we, about how crucial the Ravazzas are. It all starts at Ravatza 1. You have to be as late on the brakes as you possibly can. You've got to hit the apexes, and then you've got to be you've got to feel out the car and make sure that you apply as much throttle as the rear tyres will allow you to, and no more. Otherwise, you'll either be spinning off into the barrier, or you'll just get a terrible run, and you will be sort of easy prey on the main straight. And Shirakawa's had an absolutely mega start. 9 positions so far, looking to make it an even 10. And I think Yuki Shirakawa was showing that you don't have to qualify to get a good result in the Formula 3.5 series.
Not always, just 3.5 had a nice little last to first at Watkins Glen early in the week in the LMP2. So possible in every series. You do need a little bit of luck to come your way, though. I had a bit of luck where the leader fell off with a couple of laps to go, but Shirakawa, knowing the caliber of drivers in front of him, a real challenge for him. Here's a replay. So Jamie Byrne there in the 7. The 16 just in front of him. Oh, that's a lovely move done up the inside of the toaster, but there's contact and a half spin for Jamie Byrne. And that undoes it all in a flash, and not what he will have been hoping for here today from Imola. As Crespo coming under pressure from Shirakawa. A bit of a lock-up there. Shirakawa just losing a little bit through taste, and Crespo runs wide, and here comes Shirakawa. This is his time to shine. Moves out of the slipstream. Has he pulled out a little bit too early? If he's going to have to dip back in again to gather a bit more momentum. But it looks like it's done and dusted. Crespo's going to hold on to it. It's like running wide out of Ravazza.
It seemed like Crespo sort of activated his DRS when maybe Shirakawa didn't. That's the only way I can really think of the difference of straight line speed, or that sort of great difference. It was, you know, quite astounding how quick Crespo managed to sort of get back up to speed after, you know, you rightly pointed out to him, he ran very wide on the exit of Ravazza too, so not quite sure what's going on there. Shirakawa now really got to settle and settle down into that rhythm. You know, he's tried to make the overtaking attempt, and it hasn't worked out, and it's now so easy to get flustered, try and, you know, send it up the inside of maybe where it isn't warranted. And, you know, we saw what can happen. You know, Jamie Byrne is a really good example of this. You know, you've got to make moves that work, and you can't sort of, you can't make 50-50 moves, especially when you're coming through the field. You've got to be, you know, defined moves that are almost guaranteed to end successfully. You know, otherwise your whole work is undone. So I think Shirakawa is doing the right thing of just sort of biding his time. And you never know. I mean, with the pace that he's got at the moment, he could really ideally be looking at a podium. I mean, he's not too far off the back of Rakon at the moment.
Let's look at the front end of the grid. Samborski leads from Bahar. Stewart running on the podium with, Bahar, he's lost the place to Stewart there. Stewart clearly using one of his 8 available DRSs that each of the drivers had. They can deploy them whenever they want and as many times per lap. Let's see some of the drivers. That was a big netco there, and Shirakawa, he's off. Likewise is Crespo, who he made that contact with.
Huge netcode there. I have to feel sorry. And did it seem, Tim, like the netcode sort of affected Shirakawa quite a while afterwards as well? Because it looked like he sort of made the move, and then for some reason his car just flew up into the air. This is James Byrne. What's going to happen to him?
Him sailing through there, Sam. The scene of the crime. Where there it is. Wow. I mean, those two, there was so much space there that you could, wow. I think I could lie down between, like you say, I think you're about to say, you could fit another car between the pair of them.
I was exactly going to say that. Could have easily been 3 wide. So, I mean, rotten luck for Shirakawa and for Crespo. And you have to say that Miguel Crespo has come off way worse in that little exchange. He's still, according to our timing stands, driving around, which I'm not quite sure how he's doing, because that car went into the wall at quite some rate of knots.
These cars are incredibly robust, but even so, you do have to wonder, that would have been definitely a big impact for him. But look at the lead that Samborski's got, 5.6 seconds clear of the field already. We're only on lap 8 out of 24 here from Imola. This is Cornu tries to catch his fellow countryman Ranchon, and Gallus coming along for the fight as well. Bit of a gap starting to emerge now in this following group due to the issues that we've had with for a few of the drivers. Crespo, he's into the pits. Clearly some damage that are affecting him. After that contact with Shirakawa, that electric start from the Japanese driver that saw him up into, I think he got up as high as 8th place, before then being demoted down to 13th as he has to recover his car. These three are starting to close in, trading incredibly similar lap times, 1:30.3s for each of them respectively, literally hundredths of a second separating them. With Cornu being ever so slightly faster of the 3 of them, 1:30.31 compared to Ranchon ahead of him, a 0.34, and Gallus, 0.38 behind him. Only 2 drivers in the 129s at the moment. That is Samborski and Stewart. Fastest lap being occupied by Samborski, looking to make it 2 Grand Challenge. So that is for pole, leading every lap, the fastest lap, and to say that Samborski sets yet another fastest lap of 1:29.5 seconds and taking the victory. Stewart also chasing his second podium in the season, picked up a third last time out at Suzuka, and looking to go one better here today in Italy. But Baja, he'll be a new addition to that podium. Haven't seen him in a little while in the series. Great to see him back and fighting at the front as Jamie Byrne heading past Old there. There's a little pass going on there between the two. Battles up and down the field. Jamie Byrne, another one of the drivers being caught out here today from contact. It was that half spin right here at Toza. No, sorry, it's at Villeneuve at the moment. The next corner at Toza. They just caught him out and made him lose a whole bucket of time. To see Freckleton under a bit of an attack right now from Jason Sieg. He's on a recovery himself, and James Byrne. Well, currently about 1.2 seconds covering the three of them, Seb.
Yeah, it's all just calming down at the moment. Feels like, you know, that middle stint of any sort of Formula style race where everybody's just conserving the tyres, managing a little bit of tyre temperature, maybe managing fuel if you've sort of underfueled your car a little bit before we get to the frantic final few laps. As you see there, Dylan Freckleton activating his DRS. You can tell that by the rear wing closing. It's different to the Formula 1 style DRS. Instead of opening a flap, you close a flap and you stall out the rear wing. So Freckleton using one of his 8 uses of DRS down the straight, clearly feeling like he needs to either defend or attack, and he's got nobody really ahead of him, definitely feeling the pressure from Sieg behind. Now it's all about who can be consistent, who can just keep it on the road, and actually sort of a fairly sort of unique challenge to Imola is who can stay off those sausage curves. I don't know if you spotted them from the onboards, but you know, and you'll know it as good as anybody, Tim. These sort of curbs are on the inside of the corners, the sort of black and yellow ones. If you hit them, especially in these Formula cars, in the wrong spot and you damage the floor, I mean, that's practically race over.
I had a bit of an up-close and personal real-life experience with them. I visited Le Mans a few weeks ago for the 24-hour race, and we had a bit of a walk around the track and just seeing what these sausage curbs are like in real life, which transcends across to the sim as well. They're absolutely rock solid and a lot higher than what you would think they are, and you can really understand why it unsettles the car and makes a real challenge for the drivers, and also runs the risk of incurring a bit of damage, especially with the front wings on these ultra low Formula cars. As Jamie Byrne trying to put a bit of daylight between himself and Old right now. That gap out to 2 seconds. Crespo back into the pits again after heading in previously, following that netco contact between himself and Shirakawa. Shirakawa down another, I think it's down a couple of places there. As he's currently into third. Samborski leading currently on lap 11. Stewart second, Baja in third, with Ranchon, Cornu, Gallis in sixth. Freckleton, Sieg, Byrne and Owens rounding out your top 10 here in Italy for now. As you approach half race distance, you know full well in Formula Renault 3.5 that we are only moments away from something happening. Everything seems to calm down at this point in the race. We see it time after time, and then all of a sudden something happens which really changes the dynamic of the race. And Seb, we were talking about earlier about the 8 uses of DRS that the drivers have available to them. If you're locked in a bit of a battle, for instance that one we were witnessing earlier, the Freckleton, Sieg and James Byrne battle is currently ensuing over 7th place right now. How do you use your DRSs? Do you wait for the last 8 laps and use them all then? Or do you maybe look to try and get a move done a bit earlier? Or what would be your tactic?
I mean, we were talking to the drivers about this in the interviews after last week's, and there were some drivers saying, well, actually, I sort of felt pressured into using all of them, but it did seem like everybody was trying to wait for the final few laps to use them all in succession. When I used to race the Formula 3.5, Shirakawa actually, just while I was saying that, sets the fastest lap of the race, so it's a little bit spicy there. Oh, and there's down the inside goes Shirakawa. That's on Lambert. Can't find a way through. Was certain we were going to have a repeat of a few laps to go and some more contact for Shirakawa. Can't do anything into the Variante Villeneuve. Yeah, I think Shirakawa is proving just about what I was going to say. You sometimes just have to surprise your opponent with the use of DRS, sort of use it maybe sort of in a place on the exit of Tosa where another driver wouldn't expect you to use it. Somewhere that's a little bit sort of unexpected can really throw the driver off and sort of give you that edge. But of course they can do the same to you, which Shirakawa is absolutely flying up there at the moment, Tim. I think he's going to be setting up a move to try and go down the inside of Lambert into the Variante Alta.
Oh, no, I think it's going to come earlier. There you go. Exit stage right for Lambert. Being harassed and harried like a swarm of bees behind, angry bees behind him. Those Shirakawa is moving left and right in the entrance into, well, not just Villeneuve, but also Tosa in his attempt to find a way past his Gallus. Oh, there you go. I said it all calms down, and you're only a moment away from something happening. And Daniel Gallus, it all goes wrong for him, and he falls right down through the order. And here comes Shirakawa behind him. It's going to be a big closing speed difference between the pair of them. I don't think he's going to quite get the move done, but here we go. So we're on board with Gallus through Ravazza 1 and 2. All looks good so far.
Too much curb on the inside there. That started earlier than you would have thought. Unsettled the car, disturbed the airflow underneath the floor, which is where this car gets a lot of grip from, and that was it. Just goes to show how difficult Ravazza is to.
Gallus has gone from a strong position to now it's his turn to be harried and harassed by Shirakawa. Freckleton still being chased down by Sieg. So Gallus dropping out of this little battle here. What can Sieg do? How many of his DRSs has he got left up his sleeve? I mean, I suppose it's one of those things, it's a bit easier, Sam. Just talking again about the DRSs to be the following car, because what you can do, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you're following the car in front of you and if they're using their DRS, obviously you're going to generate a bit more of an additional slipstream effect from where they're going faster. So you can almost save one in your bank to utilise later in the race.
You certainly can, and you know, I think the only problem that I found with that strategy is seeing when they actually open the DRS. If you're sort of either sort of watching the steering wheel or just absent-mindedly, you can sometimes sort of miss that. But you're right, you should get a sort of a higher speed as Shirakawa makes another move, this time past Gallus, and actually sets the fastest lap of the race for good measure, all while doing that. A little bit slipstream assisted, but yeah, you know, you can save some DRSs, and it's sort of another reason why it doesn't really matter if you're sort of sticking behind another car. You know, you can save a little bit of fuel, you can save a little bit of your tyre wear, you can save some DRS uses and sort of build yourself up to sort of go for this move. So that's why these Formula 3.5 races always go down to the wire, because it's sometimes so advantageous to be the following car. Of course, though, you've got to contend with sort of dirty air and all of that, so you know, it's not easy, but I think, especially around a circuit like Imola, it's not too bad to be doing that. I think the benefits sometimes outweigh the risks.
Just looking at this battle right now between Freckleton and Sieg, James Byrne is catching on to the back of them. You can visibly see the gap shrinking in front of him. Interestingly, for these three, they're not a million miles off Ranchon and Cornu ahead of him. New personal best for Josh Stewart. So he looks to extend his gap over. Baha is currently in third place. But here comes Sieg on the attack. Work it out around the outside. If he can hold it around there, he'll get the move on done on Freckleton. No, just kills off the bit of momentum from James Byrne. There's contact! Oh, and he's off he goes. Oh, Seb, it's happened again. Down at turn 1.
Ooh, and
wow.
James Byrne went off the track as well for good measure. Yeah, turn 1 is proving to be really tricky for the drivers, and let's see if we can get a little bit of a better understanding of what happens. So we've got Sieg and Freckleton side by side, and then once again sort of netcode slash probably James Byrne not necessarily sticking his car where maybe it wasn't warranted. I'd be interested to get your take on that, Tim.
That's how it seemed to myself as well, Seb. You've been a much better racer than myself. I'll definitely always concur with your outcome of it. So you see Samborski there, that gap now a whopping mammoth 10 seconds, and well, for good measure, snatches fastest lap of the race away from Shirakawa, unassisted as well. No slipstream in front of from a car in front of him to help aid him with that top speed across the start-finish line down towards Tamburello. Samborski really pushing hard in these latter stages. Lap 16 out of 24, 8 to go here at the circuit. Autodrome International, Enzo Ardino Ferrari. Oh, for much easier purposes, Imola and Freckleton can be highly relieved to see Sieg disappear from his mirrors and burn as well. But what can he do to catch up onto the flying Frenchman of Ranchon and Cornu ahead of him? And the only thing that could potentially help him a little bit here, Seb, is that when these two start battling, that's going to allow him to close that gap up a lot more easily. But it is about 2.5 seconds, and these two are teammates as well.
They are, and I think that's going to play a big point. A big part in this. You know, they're gonna really try and work together and not cost themselves too much time. I think if Ranchon feels like, you know, maybe his teammate has the faster car. Oh, is that Ranchon there having a little bit of a connection issue? Always so off-putting, actually, if you're the driver behind. Unsurprisingly, really, you know, when a car disappears in front of you, you know, you rely a lot on them to sort of tally when to brake and what line to take, because you can't really get the sight lines of any of the corners where you normally use. Is Cornu now actually, you can just see lifting off, really not wanting to battle Ranchon at all. So I don't really see much of an issue between those two. Shirakawa though, back into the top 10, getting past Morgan Keane this time by. Shirakawa having a relatively good recovery drive. It's sort of his second recovery drive of the day after not qualifying, making his way through the field, having that contact with Crespo. Jamie Byrne as well, also on a bit of a recovery drive. Actually, so is Rotes, who is just getting past. Actually, it's not Rotes, is it? It's Lambert. So the next driver on Byrne's list is Lambert, who also went off on lap 1, although it's about 8 seconds. So Jamie Byrne's going to have to get the pedal to the metal if he wants to catch up. But never say never. And you know, we've been saying to him all throughout this broadcast, you know, never count out anything that happens in Formula 3, because it can change on a dime.
As we see two Frenchmen working together here. As we heard earlier, Cornu just lifting out of the throttle to not get past his teammate. Maybe a little bit of team orders coming into play as they come round Ravazza 1 and 2. And then out across this start-finish, well, you can't call it as straight. There's actually corners involved in it. Tamburello, which you probably class as turn 1, is actually turn 2. And it's lifting out there. Actually, no, that is a swap between the pair of them. Cornu now taking the lead. And these two may be working a little bit together, because Freckleton is closing in on them, taking time out of the pair of them. Last time around alone, took about 3 attempts out of the pair of them. Charging hard is the Brit. The two Frenchmen, Cornu and Ranchon, not really making great inroads against Omar Baha ahead of them. Currently occupying the last place on the podium. There's a difference in last times between Ranchon and Freckleton. You see him on the screen right now. There you go. 4 attempts against Ranchon was Freckleton. The attempt he made to make on the last 2 laps alone. And he's going to start to fill the mirrors bit by bit, more and more, if he can continue on at that sort of pace difference against these two ahead of him. I think virtual drivers by TX3. It's going to be interesting when they come across the line to see just how much more has Freckleton managed to take out of the pair of them. New fastest lap for Samborski, 1:29.1. Can he make it into the 1:28? It's going to be close, running out of time for him. 5 laps remaining, lap 19 out of 24. In from Imola, the new personal best from Sieg, responding to Samborski, but still 7/10 slower last time around as we ride on board with Yuki Shirakawa, trying to close in on John Owens. Half a second between the pair of them. Into Samborello, the left, the right, the left again, and then the short straight down towards Villeneuve. It's a tricky chicane, which sort of tightens up on the exit. Again, really compromising your entrance, so make sure you get that perfect launch on the exit. And Shirakawa taking a further couple attempts out of Owens, who just runs in and a bit deep. He knows he's in trouble. He's pushing that a little bit harder to make sure he stays ahead of Shirakawa. And this could be only time before the Japanese driver makes his way past. You see just how handy he is at overtaking around here so many times a game. You can see Owens just getting a bit leery, a bit wide. And the amount of speed that Shirakawa is able to take, and there you go, onto the brakes, gets the move done. And Shirakawa wants a bit wide. Owens is going to pull back alongside as we race down towards the Ravatsas, and Shirakawa is going to be on the outside here. Will Owens yield? Well, yes, he does. And that pretty much gifts Shirakawa that place.
How did Yuki Shirakawa slow down for the very anti-alta? I will never know. He was full on opposite lock. Just sort of the rears locking as how much sort of brake demand he was sort of expecting from the car. Absolutely incredible job. I mean, amazing overtaking from Shirakawa. And what sort of a little bit disappointing for him is that, you know, when he's running in clean air or in a little bit of slipstream, he's running, you know, quicker or as quick, slightly quicker or the same laps as Samborski is in the lead. So, you know, Shirakawa, if he'd managed to get his qualifying together, didn't have, you know, the incident a few laps in, he would have really been up there, you know, towards the front of the field. So, yeah, I think, you know, it's a what could have been race for Shirakawa, but it's a what has been race for Samborski. Still in the lead, 13 seconds now ahead of Stewart in second. And as he said to him, you know, Stewart has been putting in sort of the best laps of the race for, you know, personal bests, but they are nowhere near, you know, the pace of Samborski. You know, 7/10 of a second separates their fastest lap times. And, you know, if you sort of have Joshua Stewart down, Stewart is one of the quickest drivers on track. Just goes to show how quick Eddie Samborski really is. And there you go, Tim. You were saying that will he be able to get into the 1:28, and he's certainly just done that time by.
Exactly, a 1:28.9 for the first driver into it. Put in perspective, Stuart, as you're saying, one of the next quickest drivers on the track other than Shirakawa, and he only managed a 1:29.8, so 9/10 of a second slower. This is the dominance display we're seeing from Samborski once again as he looks to make it 2 wins from 2 in the Formula Renault 3.5 Championship here on Apex Racing TV. He's got the track to himself, just practically hot lapping, playing with the car right now, pushing as hard as he dares as he looks to clinch that fastest lap title by an even greater margin, bouncing across the curbs. Man and machine at 1 as old sets a new personal best. This is he headed across the start-finish line. And in some ways, I mean, it just shows the colour of the drivers, despite the incidents that they've had. And I know track length playing a little bit of the part here. That amazing, really, that Samborski hasn't managed to lap more people.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. He's absolutely rapping out there, and he really reminds me a lot of, you know, Sebastian Vettel back in sort of the 2012, 2013 days of that, you know, that pure dominance of just being able to go out, lead a race, and have the confidence and the ability just to get faster and faster throughout the race. And yeah, the self-belief that, you know, I can, you know, push an extra couple of % into every braking zone because, you know, I've got the skill and talent to deal with it. I mean, if I was him, I'd be absolutely terrified of, you know, sticking a wheel on the grass and end up spinning. So, utmost respect for Samborski, and that is why he is out there driving and we are in the commentary box, or at least why I am in the commentary boxes. James Byrne coming under pressure from Shirakawa. And let's see, can he, the second time he's tried to pass somebody for 7th place, and we'll hope for Shirakawa's sake and Byrne's sake that it goes a little bit more smoothly than the first one. Through the Varianti Villeneuve we go. Byrne's still in the lead of this little battle. Shirakawa though, so much pace, so much command of that car, just is able to place it wherever he wants to. And that car just simply just responds. You know, Byrne just looks a little bit more tentative, especially in the high speed and high sort of stress braking zones, but Shirakawa was just absolutely out there, enjoying himself, having fun. And you know, I said it before, Tim, and I'll say it again, what could have happened, or what could have been, if Shirakawa didn't have that issue, or those issues in qualifying, and didn't make that mistake earlier on? He could have really been up there fighting with Samborski.
Wow, look at that. Another new fastest lap for Samborski. You mentioned his name there, Seb, on 28.6. Shirakawa trying to make his way past, and decides, thinks twice about it. Backs out of it there into the Ravazzas. But he's going to have this long, long run down to Samborello to get the move done. He jinks out of the slipstream against James Byrne. And he's ever so slightly ahead as they cut the timing beam. And on to the penultimate lap, and that is the move done before they've even reached the apex of Tamburello.
Oh,
no! I was only about to mention, Seb, how he was catching Ranchon. Oh, that was incredibly close for Owens. A real heart-in-mouth type moment. New underwear required for him, but it's all come undone for Freckleton. Well, look, he was right onto the back of Ranchon. Onto the brakes. And, no, he's just right there. You go out onto the grass, tries to get his foot in it, and around he's gone, Seb.
I've been kicking himself for that. It's fairly, I mean, it's an easy mistake to make, you know, don't get me wrong, we've all done it, but you can't really be doing that, especially at the end of the race, because it's so damaging. I think he was just concerned of where the other car was and just simply just ran out of road. So yeah, Freckleton won't enjoy watching that one back. Somebody who will, though, is Shirakawa, although, yeah, Byrne's managed to get past Yuki Shirakawa, so James Byrne and Shirakawa still having a battle. It's round 2 towards Ravazza 1. This time Shirakawa chooses the outside line and is simply going to drive clean around the outside of James Byrne, but Byrne really keeping his foot in there. And we cross the line. Oh, they touch!
Oh, no, and they're both launched in the wall. That is game over for Shirakawa and Byrne. Oh, no, it's all gone wrong yet again for Shirakawa.
He's going to have to take the blame for that one, though, by my, you know, sort of first glance.
Hold on, Seb. I see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to run it right down to the end of the wall to unhook himself. There you go, he's done it.
I mean, that's fairly impressive, but there is no way he's going to be able to... Well, I mean, he's in 14th place. Byrne's in the pits. Crespo, I guess, is a lap down, so he might be able to save 16th or yeah, he might be able to save a place, but no, I think I'd rather park that and sort of just sort of take your losses. As I think Samborski's coming through. After all of that, he's unaware across the line to take another victory.
It is indeed. With all the action after the track, failed to even mention that he's taken the white flag and into the final lap, but he is your race winner to make it 2 wins from 2 this season. We've run out of superlatives to describe that guy. Absolutely flying here yet again in Italy. Stewart picks up second.
Baha going to come across the line in 3rd place. Freckleton still battling, this time with Owens. And who is going to get the better run? It looks like Owens just manages to sort of stave off the attack from Freckleton. Keen there as well, all getting involved as they cross the line in 6th, 7th and 8th respectively. And I'm kind of interested to see, Tim, how Shirakawa is getting on in his lap. He's still got to kind of trot across the line, and I'm amazed that car's even driving. There he is, and that's a very, very sad looking car. That's Crespo getting past him, but he is a lap down, so Shirakawa is going to keep that position. But, you know, what could have been for Shirakawa? I keep on saying it, Tim, and every time I say it, it sort of feels more and more apt. I mean, it did look like he just moved across, didn't it, Tim? It looked like that was unnecessary, and, you know, I don't know, what could have been.
Well, you do have to wonder for Shirakawa what an eventful, well, from rags to riches to rags to riches and back down to rags again for the Japanese driver. I mean, at one point, Seb, on that second recovery, he was up, I think, 11, 12 places nearly, but then that coming together, so he came across the start-finish line, was what undid it for him. Here's a replay of it again. I mean, it was an absolute 400 IQ move to keep driving the car despite being wedged in the wall. There you go, just contact between himself and Byrne. But you can see he's wedged in the wall. He spotted that the wall stopped. And then here we go. He just drives the car through absolute brute force and zero mechanical sympathy. This is absolutely brilliant. I've never seen anything like this. I'm not sure I will again, but Shirakawa unhooks himself and off he goes on his merry way, albeit with a heavily damaged front end. Wow. Just wow. You think you see it all, and then somebody surprises you yet again. And this time, Yuki Shirakawa, you are the person to do so. I lost for words, Sebs. I am completely lost for words on that one.
Yeah, it's just the second time you've ever been speechless in commentary, as we have the race results, and maybe this will give us something to talk about him.
Definitely Samborski, another Grand Chelem for him. Started on pole, led every lap, fastest lap of the race and took the victory. Josh Stewart in second, Barhoff picks up the last place on the podium. Cornu finishes fourth with Rancho in fifth. Owens, Freckleton in seventh in the end. Keane, Gallus, Lambert, Ranier, top 10. Then it's Jamie Verheyen, Reutz, Old, and Shirakawa, last driver's feature on the lead lap and taking it to 14th. Then Miguel Crespo, James Byrne, and Jason Sieg, obviously retired. Now we're going to have a bit of a chat to some of the drivers. Well, first off, let's have a chat to...
I'm going to let you through. I was like, oh, that's a gap, you know?
There we go. Welcome along, Eddie Samborski. Another Grand Chelem to your name, as you mentioned just previously. Started on pole, led every lap, fastest lap of the race, and took the victory. Wow. I mean, we run out of ways to describe that you drive this car. And almost questions to ask you because you've hit a massive, rich vein of form at the moment. I suppose, how long do you think you can make this last?
I will keep trying, and as long as I can. I mean, at some point, you know, the racing gods are going to tell me enough is enough. Until that point, I'm going to keep going. You know?
I don't blame you in the slightest. Now, obviously, you know, you absolutely love this car. Maybe a car that doesn't get quite as much love as maybe what it deserves in iRacing. I mean, what can you say about this car that to try and entice other drivers into driving it more?
I would say that it is up front. You know, it is more difficult than, from what I'm told, compared to other cars. I spent a lot of time with it. So I don't have that baseline to say, you know, I don't go jump in and drive the Dallara or F3 or F4. You know, this is what I like to drive. So I'm told that it's slightly more challenging, but on the same token, it's also more rewarding. So if you get it right, you know, you feel better about what you've done. And our community is really outstanding, I think. I mean, I know most communities say the same thing, but, you know, we have issues like any other racing series is going to. It's unavoidable, but, you know, for the most part, everyone's really nice and calm. And, you know, I just like to say that, you know, if you're doing really well in another series and, you know, you're becoming bored or tired with it, maybe give the 3.5 a chance, because I guarantee you it'll put you in your place. It did to me. You know, it lets you know when you don't do anything right. It's you know, it doesn't care who you are. What your iRating is, you do something wrong, you're going in the wall.
That is very true. We've seen that a few times today, and well, definitely throwing down the gauntlet to some other drivers to take up this car. Now, next week, Fuji, a bit of a clean slate for everyone, a brand new track to iRacing. Have you had a chance to venture out around there yet in the Formula Renault 3.5?
Oh yeah, I got some hours in already. I'm still unsure. I actually have an optimal setup. Usually I'm fairly confident about what I want to drive, what I want to use. Fuji is very tricky. Sector 3 makes you want to pile on the downforce, and Sector 1 makes you want to pile it off, or or remove it or unpile it, however you want to phrase it. So I've been trying everything I can think of to try and balance that a little better, and I think I have something that's good. I just, you never know. I could show up and be a second off the pace. You just never know.
Well, of course, with it being a brand new circuit, that is, it's quite a possibility, isn't it? It's rolling the dice. You might get a double one or a double six. You never quite know. And before we let you go, anyone you want to give a shout out to at all?
Yes, I have to thank people who have donated to the broadcast to keep the series going. We've had a large donation by a certain team and a certain member, or a certain driver of the series. So if you want to check that out, head on the forums. It's all there for you to look at. Every donation is important, and I'd like to thank Omar for coming back to the car. It's probably been since before the IR01 was released the last time Omar raced, so hopefully he'll stick around. He was a regular. You probably, if he continues to make the effort, you should get used to seeing him up front.
That'll definitely be great to see another new name to the series and someone else up front. It's Ali Samborski making it 2 wins from 2 so far this season. Now, Seb, I understand you're standing by with driver who picked up the second time on the podium this season, Josh Stewart.
I am indeed. Good evening, Josh. Good morning. Yeah, good race from your side. Up 1 position from where you started. Talk us through your race. Did you sort of feel that was the most you were going to get out of today's race?
Yeah, hi guys. Great to be on the podium for the 2nd week running. Yeah, look, I was stressing a little bit because I crashed twice, once on my out lap and once on my first flying lap in qualifying. So I only had 1 lap to put it together. So that got things off to a tricky start, but managed to put it on the 2nd row, thankfully. And was pretty close with Omar there for a few laps. He was good enough over radio. He said, I think you've got a bit more pace in it than I do, so if you've got a chance, go past it. And I did, and then was able to pull a gap on Omar. But that was about all I had. At this track, it's one of the toughest I think we go to in terms of you can make a small mistake and the consequences are quite big. So you, at least for me, I always leave a little bit in reserve. So I could have pushed maybe a little bit more, but the risk wasn't really worth it. I wasn't going to catch Ed. He was in another series today. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Yeah, I mean, great result. I always like hearing that you're driving these Formula 3.5 cars around Imola at stupidly fast speeds, and then you're having like chats with other drivers. It always amazes me just the ability that you guys have. So you said that you struggled with qualifying. You had a few incidents. How does that affect you? Sort of talk about the mentality of that. Obviously you're on the back foot for your qualifying lap, but did that sort of affect you going into the race as well?
I mean, it's more of a mindset for your 2nd lap. Like, typically I like to get a banker lap in. I think everybody sort of understands what that is. It's just something that maybe is an 80% lap that you just got there just in case something goes wrong on your push lap. But I didn't get that, obviously. From my optimal, though, I could tell that I had a good enough time if I put all the sectors together for either P2 or P3. So it was just about keeping it on the road, and it is nerve-wracking, especially when you get to the last 2 corners here. It's really easy to outbrake yourself and put it in the kitty litter, and so just making sure I don't outbrake myself there. But after that, it's a bit of a reset. Lap 1 is pretty tricky here. The tyres changed a little bit this season, so it takes a little bit longer to come up to temp, and I think especially at Piratella, that long fast left-hander, it's easy to lose the rear. So it's just about resetting and making sure I don't push the car too hard on lap 1. So that's the mentality that at least I was thinking post quali.
super interesting. Yeah, it's really always lovely to talk to you, Josh. It's always super informative. And, we obviously head to Fuji in 1 week's time. We were just talking to Eddie Samborski, who was saying that he's sort of struggling a little bit with the setup and sort of wondering which direction to go to. Have you done any practice at Fuji, or have you sort of got an idea of where you're going to go?
No, I haven't. I think it would be probably a high downforce track still. I think that last sector is a bit too fiddly for maybe a medium, but I never say never. But no, I'll be definitely putting in some practice maybe later today and tomorrow, because it's a track I've never ever driven in any sim racing before. So yeah, who knows?
Well, we wish you luck for the practice. And yeah, hope to see you in 1 week's time. Before we let you go and celebrate your second podium in a row, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to at all on the broadcast?
Yeah, big thanks to Downforce Racing, especially Miguel and Jason. It's unfortunate they had a pretty average race, some few incidents there that doesn't look like they're their fault, but thanks to them for the setup work and the help and the support throughout the week. Shout out to Omar as well. It's good to have him back in the series. He's an OG as well, and he did awesome. Front row start and podium on his return. So that's awesome. Thanks to you guys. And just check out downforceracing.co. It has links to a stream that I do every week. And actually, we'll recap this race next week just to go through all the incidents and everything a little bit more in depth than probably what you see on the broadcast. But thanks very much, guys. Catch you next week.
See you in 1 week's time as we head to Fuji.
Thanks.
Tim, I always enjoy talking to the drivers, and Josh is always so good at sort of really explaining what they're going through. I still can't believe that they're having sort of chats with each other while they're racing.
I know, it's super impressive, really, isn't it? The level of concentration that must take for them, and to still be knocking out those sorts of last times, it's mesmerising, for want of a better word. But talking of mesmerising, big shout out to one of our sponsors today, Apex Racing Academy. There are 29 data packs, setups, track guides, integration with Virtual Racing School, another one of our sponsors. They also have weekly group coaching sessions, which for the drivers within the Apex Racing team. So if you're looking to up your game, maybe take the fight to one of the stronger drivers within the racing series that you race within, make sure you check them out to help bring up your game. But wow, coming up on the channel is plenty of racing still left this weekend. Tomorrow evening we have got the SRF Weekend Warriors. Make sure you tune in for that one. Just like this series, wall-to-wall action, drama, and excitement. That is at 10 to 9 BST. So make sure I'll be back in the commentary for that one. Make sure you tune in for that. And then also we've got coming up on that Sunday evening, Sam will be back for IGP Fun F3. They are at, Fuji, the track that we are at in a week's time. From myself, Tim Cox, Seb Bosher-Williams, and Sam Fitzpatrick. We'll see you then in a week's time in Japan.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.